So let's talk about the inflammation of the frozen shoulder and why it happens. Previous studies have identified increased myofibroblast differentiation and proliferation, immune cell influx, and dysregulated cytokine production as being the chemical cellular ickiness of frozen shoulder. Now, the fibroblast that causes frozen shoulder and Dupuytren's contracture is a myofibroblast, which, just so you know, connective tissue can contract because of the myofibroblast. Also, connective tissue transfers pain to your brain faster than your nervous system, believe it or not. Your connective tissue is a whole system-wide network. So when you have fascial issues and frozen shoulder, it really hurts. Myofibroblasts are very, very helpful for healing when you have an injury, and when the area is healed, those myofibroblasts die off. Now, what if your body is overreacting in a frozen shoulder and now it's contracting, and those cells don't die off? It's painful. So frozen shoulder is a fibrosis of the capsule of the glenohumeral joint, which is your shoulder, and it is a multifactorial disease. Recent studies have found that expression of immune cells, inflammatory mediators, and fibrosis associated with cytokines in frozen shoulder. Chronic inflammatory cells like mast cells, T cells, B cells, and macrophages have been identified in frozen shoulder biopsies. Inflammation in a weird chemical way is what drives frozen shoulder, and it is crazy. Then the resident tenocyte, which is the house mom, if you watch my previous videos, has the ability to modulate inflammatory and matrix crosstalk, and thus is likely to be important in the balance of reparation and degeneration. So when the tenocyte goes wrong, everything goes wonky. I would also say if the fibroblast is stretched, it will also become funky, because if it's not building the right way, it makes a mess. It's like the toddler. Pathological shoulder capsule tissue has demonstrated a myofibroblast differentiation and a proliferation in dense types 1 and 3 collagen matrix. As you know, type 1 is more sturdier, type 3 is a loose matrix, type 3 is what is originally made and should be remodeled to a type 1. And so when there is an imbalance there, there's a problem. Capsular fibrosis and contracture have been suggested to stiffen the shoulder capsule and restrict the range of motion, specifically external rotation, flexion, and similar to other fibrotic diseases such as Dupuytren's contracture or Dupuytren's disease. Both frozen shoulder and Dupuytren's disease is a myofibroblast cytokine problem. Fibroblasts are primarily responsible for the synthesis and remodeling of the extracellular matrix, and therefore tissue remodeling and repair. Keep in mind, if the extracellular matrix doesn't have enough of its volume, isn't quite right, the collagen will have increased cross-linking, which means it's not going to pull right, and poof, we have problems. Increasingly, activation or impaired fibroblast function has been associated with chronic inflammatory diseases such as RA and soft tissue diseases such as tendinopathy. RA is very, very much a cytokine storm within the joint. Rheumatic pain is exquisitely painful for a joint because of the chemical inflammation within. This looks like we're picking out a kitchen counter, but what it is slides that are stained to look at the control versus a person who had a frozen shoulder, and to look at these joint capsules and look at the difference between the fibroblasts and the collagen. Notice this is a little bit more clean and this is more busy. So what you were looking at on the right was more densely packed collagen fibers and more fibroblasts, and that was the frozen shoulder. So of course it's tight and bound down. They also found more capillaries and blood flow in the frozen shoulder compared to the normal mortal capsule. So when the fibroblasts overreact and there is an overexpression, there's too many fibroblasts, those activation markers are going to lead to secreting more inflammatory proteins and more cytokine storm within the joint. And it is a very chemically painful thing. So frozen shoulder isn't just your run-of-the-mill tendinitis. And this is why what is happening at the cellular level matters, because unless you address that, frozen shoulder will not go away through normal exercise like tendinitis. Why frozen shoulder is so difficult to treat, because it is a chemical underlying issue, not just a mechanical issue that is a majority of orthopedic injuries. Now, secondary frozen shoulder has both, but primary frozen shoulder needs you to deal with the underlying inflammatory issues that is happening.